You take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. I was asked by Gina to come in and present just some general ideas. I think the thing was really parents hoping to get a little bit more information, and I made the working title, Better Understand My Teen. We're going to talk specifically about the mental health, substance use, and just kind of the new normal that we're all trying. I know I'm desperately trying to adjust to in a lot of ways. Just the way life has changed over the past 2 years, especially with COVID, and teens have experienced a lot of that too. So I always like to start every presentation with what are our objectives. And kind of the feedback I got initially was that we want to identify these specific concerns. We want to recognize kind of the normal versus what's abnormal, or the things that's like, okay, I don't need to stress over it, things I do need to stress over. And then really specifically, some questions came in, and that's where the specific concerns from teens, but like noticing some of these current trends and seeing how things are going, and then just kind of address that. I built this presentation with the idea that it would be, I'm going to give you some data and some details for a short amount of time, but really for me, as I like just a lot of back and forth. And so at any point, you guys unmute yourself and say, hey, James, I got a question. I love to start that dialogue. I am a therapist, and so I like to talk. And so you're not going to hurt my feelings at all if you just chime in. You can throw things into the chat if that's more comfortable for you. Gina, would you do me a favor and just kind of be my eyes on the chat, because sometimes I don't see those when I'm sharing my screen, and just throw it up there, if at least put my attention to it or something. But I guess really the big thing is, she said my name, but the important thing is, who in the heck is this guy? Well, this guy is James. I am a counselor. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have been with Wedgwood for a little over 4 years now. I've been licensed since 2010. My primary focus is working with adolescents. I love that age group. I started with Wedgwood in the Ottawa court program. That was a kind of a contract that Wedgwood built with the court to provide substance use disorder services for kids, counseling in particular, for kids that were in court, like on probation. If they had drug charges, they admitted that they'd used substances, and that's, the court was really focused on prevention and helping kids to kind of move beyond that as part of an overall plan to not punish, but to enable better choices. And so I've been with Wedgwood for about 4 years. I have a little bit of lived experience with kids myself. I actually have three boys. My oldest is going to be 21 here in May, 19, and then my youngest is almost 15. We're starting to think about driver's training and all of that stuff. And so I have some lived experience with teens. And the interesting point is that I think it's always interesting to point out, for me, at least point out to myself, that I work with a population that has some issues, right? There's concerns, and there's grief, and there's trauma, and there's loss, and there's that. And then I have my own kids, and separating those two has been difficult. So even with my oldest son, he kind of went through a rough patch, and I have all these things in my head that, oh no, he's going this criminal route. And thankfully it has not happened. And it's absolutely true for us as parents. We will see these terrible things in the news or hear these terrible things, and then we kind of assume that our own kids are, because of that fear, the position of fear and anxiety. And so I guess I was just like reassure partly myself, but also everybody else, that fear, that anxiety, that oh no, what's happening is absolutely normal. And I think, in my mind, maybe I'm telling myself, but I think that makes us better parents, just because we have enough of that going on to say, oh gosh, I'm scared, and I want to make sure that they're making healthy choices. So if you're doing that, kudos. So let's start out with current trends. That was the big thing, is what's going on in our world. And really just this kind of microcosm of West Michigan. I work in Ottawa County. I live in the Muskegon area, kind of in between Muskegon and Grand Haven. I live out in the country, but we kind of live in this West Michigan area, and we're pretty unique. But there are some nationwide things that are happening, not the least of which, and I think it's actually really, really cool, the Surgeon General in December of 2021 put out this unprecedented health advisory, specifically talking about adolescents, about teens, about mental health, about just all of this stuff. And it is really an incredible document. You can get it, and it'll bore you to death if you read through it all. But he points some really great things, and I kind of highlight some of those. The biggest is it's calling attention. This is the Surgeon General, and his whole job is to take care of the whole health of the whole nation. And he and his people are recognizing that there's stuff going on. There's a pressing need for teens, mental health concerns, and things are growing in some ways. And he's like, hey, we got to do some stuff. We got to do some different things. And he points some of those things out. And it's a really neat document. If you guys are, you want to look at it, just Google it, Surgeon General Advisory on Teen Mental Health, something to that effect. You'll find it. It is about 60 pages, but it's got a lot of really detailed stuff. So without going into the whole thing, I did want to hit some specifics, some of the concerning things that he talks about. In their research period, which really was even before COVID, because a lot of this data comes from, the second there, 2009, 2019, these things are happening before COVID. 1 in 5 kids in that 3 to 17 range is being identified as having some kind of mental, emotional, behavioral, developmental concern. That's ADHD. That is, the depression. That can be oppositional defiant disorder, which is where the kid is like, screw you, I'm not going to do anything. I don't care what you say. And there's just kind of an overall trend of 1 in 5 kids are being kind of put in with this diagnosis and recognition that 1 in 5 kids need more support, need just all these options. High school age children also during this 10-year period reporting a much greater level of the depressive factors, those hallmarks of a mental and emotional distress we call depression, 40% increase over that time. And that's the biggest piece is hopelessness. Nothing is ever going to get better. Worthlessness. I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. Those sadness, that persistent sadness. And we all have the blues every now and again. We'll have a bad day. We just kind of want to be, but the depression is that kind of persistent feelings of not good enough, not worth anything. Nobody loves me. Nothing's ever going to get better. 40% increase in 10 years. And that's in high school age kids. Pretty scary. And then between 2011 and 2015, the amount of visits for adolescent psychiatry, emergency room visits, all of these things has gone up by 28%. It used to be you go to the principal, you get in trouble, but we're seeing mental health and the mental health difficulties increasing by an exponential rate. That kids are going to protest, kids are going to the emergency room, kids are suicidal, and that's also pretty scary. Furthermore, it said suicide rates are going up 57% between 2007 and 2018, 57% increase in suicide rate amongst these 10 to 24s, which I'll also note that there's kind of a trend in mental health nowadays to consider adolescents as up to 24, 25, and especially in guys, 26. But that really points out that adolescence is still a period of great growth and development and change. Guys develop a little bit slower, and it's brain development. Our brain kind of starts here and develops from here and then develops around. And then by this prefrontal piece is where all the logic is processed. But adolescence is going up to 24. And we're seeing also in this historical data an increase of 57% in suicide. Boys can be more likely to have the ADHD, the behavior problems, the oppositional defiant disorder is a big one. They're more likely to have those kinds of diagnoses. Then they're also more likely to die by suicide. They're more likely to attempt in ways that are going to be more successful. And this is really true across the whole lifespan. Guys are if they're going to be suicidal and they're going to choose suicide, they're going to choose a much more effective means, whereas women might attempt suicide a little bit more. And this is all stereotypical, right? Because there are girls that are going to choose the really drastic ones. But they'll choose kind of taking pills or cutting or things like that. And so there's less success in suicide, a little bit more attempts. The girls, the prevalence of anxiety, the depression, and eating disorders are a big one. For young ladies, as they're growing through all this stuff, they're going to see those. You're not going to get as much of behavior, the outbursts, the anger, and that stuff. They're having the same types of feelings, that helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness. I'm no good. I'm ugly, so therefore I'm fat, so I need to not eat. You see those in girls. Does that mean boys don't get it? No, because boys absolutely do have eating disorders. I kind of say that I have my own, because I go the opposite direction. I tend to binge eat, and there's absolutely a binge eating disorder. I would think the guys are going to be more that way than the women, the females who would restrict. But the interesting thing too is the disparity, not just between the sexes, but between cultures. Suicide rates in teens of color is nearly double that of the white counterpart for these age kids, which is also pretty scary. I have the pleasure of working with a couple of ladies, a couple of female clinicians who are people of color, and I encourage them both so much that that community needs good, strong leaders and good, strong supports, and especially in the people of color communities, there's kind of this like matriarchal, this mama or auntie kind of role that's very, very prized. And so I encourage especially the women of color who are interested to really go, because it's such a great need. And then some of these factors that take place in mental health, kind of blow this up just a little bit. I think it's interesting too, how it's like an onion, right? There's this factor, but then this factor, and then this factor. Some of them we can change, some of them we can't. Some of them we have some power to change, but it's a big change. But it starts with who we are. It starts with what we look like. What's our culture? What's our ethnicity? What's our race? What's our age? What's our genetics? Things like schizophrenia, especially, very genetic. Dad is schizophrenic. There's going to be a higher likelihood that mom or that son is going to be schizophrenic. Those are the things that we can't change. Also, the sexual orientation, disabilities, just all those things. Can't change those for the most part. And then the pieces that we can change is we can add healthy coping skills. We absolutely have direct control over the amount of coping skills that we apply, that we use. And then it almost gets a little bit like bigger because we go out farther. Relationships with our parents. And then I think that we as parents, we can control and we can shape and help our children to better manage that stuff in how we relate to them and how we interact with them and our own mental health. Because if it's like that lifeguard, right? If that lifeguard can't swim, he sure as heck isn't going to swim, save the guy who's swimming out into Lake Michigan. But as we're better able to manage our own stuff, we're better able to help them and to model the healthiest type of practices for them. And then community, what is our community like? What are our relationships with people in our community? Faith, just the school and the people in the school. I see a couple of the school counselors here. They have a big impact on these kids. And so I think that's really awesome that they're in here, and the work that they commit themselves to is pretty cool. And it just even gets bigger. What's our environment like? What's our neighborhood like? What's our social structure like? And then we really kind of don't have a whole lot of control over that. What's going on in politics? What's going on in the just the overall temperature of the world as it gets hotter? How does that change things? Well, we can't control that necessarily, but we can absolutely control how we as parents manage it, and then how we allow our children to recognize and understand and see those things. And so while we can't control the actual events, we can control and help them to control how they perceive it. Nobody's saying anything. I guess you guys don't have any questions. I've hit every point that we need to hit so far. Okay, well, we'll keep going then. Like I said, if you have anything, absolutely jump in and stop.
I will break in, James, sorry.
Yeah.
Your voice is cutting out a little bit with the sound there. I don't know if it's your internet or not, but just wanted to let you know.
All right, I'm sorry. I'll try to not move as much.
Okay.
And see if that changes things.
That seems natural.
Well, thank you.
But I wanted to introduce myself to the parents who came in a little bit late, if that's okay. My name is Melissa Vader. I'm the school counselor at Mill Creek. So I'm one of the members of the mental health team here. So if you're a parent and you have any concerns about your child, whether it's like their mental health, academics, I'm your first point of contact usually, and my contact information is on the school website if you need anything. And I'll drop it in the chat before I go. So thank you.
And that, I want to kind of piggyback on that. That is a great first relationship. If you can build that relationship with the school counselor, you can almost head off the relationship that you need to have with the principal in some ways, because we all dread that call from the principal. And if we can So I absolutely encourage parents to cultivate that relationship and get to know and seek support from that school counselor like Ms. Vader there. So I think that's awesome. Thank you for being here. And I said I was going to not move so much, but I guess I did, didn't I? My primary role is as a substance use disorder counselor. And so I wanted to jump into substance use because that is a very important thing that I, as a parent of teenage boys, recognize that there's a lot of substance use, and it's so much more available than it was a couple of years ago when legalization happened. But then I think about what it was like when I was a kid, because I'm going to be honest, I used marijuana when I smoked marijuana when I was younger, and it was very not prevalent, and it was certainly not anywhere close to the kind of potency and the significance of the stuff that we have. I want to count one of these days when I drive between Grand Rapids and Muskegon headed home, how many billboards for marijuana stores and dispensaries and all that. But it feels like every other one, and it went from every fourth, fifth one to now every other one, and it's growing because it's just so prevalent. Now we can talk about politics. I guess I'm glad that there's going to be an opportunity to tax it and kind of take out of that kind of scary piece, but that makes it more possible for kids to get a hold of it. Even if we as parents choose to use and we have things available, the kids can find it, the kids can get it. But that leads to some additional consequences and things, because remember I said adolescence is that period of great brain development, and it starts, like I said, it starts in the bottom piece and works its way up to this prefrontal cortex up here. Marijuana, while I guess I'm okay that it's legal, I like that we can tax it. I don't think it's horrible. It does do damage a tiny bit to the brain, especially if the brain is developing. It's like wet paint. The wetter the paint, the more likely you're going to smear it, smudge it, and get handprints and get it on your shirt and ruin your clothes. Their brain is still wet and solidifying, and then each little bump to that creates an opportunity. Now, is it better than, would I prefer a teen smoking marijuana over heroin? Well, absolutely. Would I prefer a teen vaping over marijuana? Yeah, probably. Would I prefer a teen to eat healthy and stay clean? Yeah, really. But I am absolutely realistic. Marijuana use is way up. Even where a couple of years ago, kids would be using, they'd get in trouble, they'd end up in the court, maybe they get a fine, or they get some supervision. Even that is decreasing. There's a big political push to not get kids charges, not get them in the system. And so there's less scrutiny over it. They get caught, they get the $250 ticket. Okay. Then those changing attitudes, it makes it more accessible, and it makes it more acceptable, and it makes it okay. And then you end up with these discussions. No, it's legal, it's fine, it's healthy, it's medical, let's do it for pain and all that stuff. But realistically, because it was just, the government just said, absolutely not, it is no good, it is illegal, nothing, we lost out on a lot of research. We lost decades of the possibility of having research. And I think the best thing about legalization now is that it opens that up. And I'm hoping that MSU and Michigan and Notre Dame and all these schools, I hope they're doing a lot of research and they're dumping a lot of money in so that we can improve our knowledge and all that stuff. The other scary piece is, while marijuana is available and it's not so terrible, that also kind of leads to the kids who are like, oh, I already smoked weed. What's that other one? A big one that I've seen recently that's very, can I hear somebody want to take a question? Guess not. There are some recreational pills that are coming around. They're called Hulks. I've heard a lot about this lately, and I've heard of some teens overdosing and serious consequences of these. They are pressed pills, and they're being sold as Xanax or bars or Xans, but we don't really know what they are because somebody's got a little mold and a powder, and they push it all down in together, and kids are taking these monster doses of, if it's Xanax, a monster dose, whereas a good typical adult dose of Xanax is going to be like 0.25 milligrams. So we're talking about 2 milligram doses. So we're talking 8 times what your doctor would recommend. And so that's scary. I guess the good news, though, is there's less of the other things, right? There's some mushrooms that still show up, and there's some of the hallucinogens, some of the LSD. There's still some of that comes up. I feel like it's decreased, and I think it's decreased because of the legalization of marijuana. So I'm not going to talk politics, but there may be some good things. But what it really boils down to is, I know getting high feels good. It's a break. It's a kind of a way to shut my brain off and to get this little bit of fun. Is it really a healthy coping? Is it really doing the things that you want it to do? Are you really benefiting from it? And that's probably the single biggest piece of substance use disorder counseling. Is this a healthy coping skill? What would be a more healthy coping skill? What would be that harm reduction piece? Because if you smoke, the brain development, the legal stuff, which is very traumatic in a lot of ways for a lot of people, getting in the system, getting probation. The harm reduction would be to decrease it and use healthy coping skills and to apply those that nobody's going to steal, nobody's going to lose, it's not going to be illegal, they can't take it away from you, that kind of stuff. So the hope is to decrease the unhealthy copings and increase the healthy coping. So that's always one of the big treatment plan goals that we set, especially when working with adolescents. So Gina sent me some very specific things that you guys were concerned about. And here's where I hope that we could have some back and forth. Obviously, the mental health piece, the anxiety, the depression. That's always something that we look for. I know as I think about my kids, and I'll pick up the youngest especially, and he's just kind of got this. I wonder, how is he managing? Is there something else that I need to be concerned about? My middle son tends to be worried. It was kind of funny. We used to, it's not even funny, but it's something that we used to kind of laugh about. He would say when he was little, what happens if the sun explodes? And he would say, I'm worried that the sun is going to explode. And I wonder if he didn't see a movie or a show where the sun went supernova, and that created this anxiety in him. And he's had to learn to manage that even as he's gone into adulthood and addressing that within himself. And it's been neat to see him grow and be able to change, but it is there. The real piece of it is, where does our anxiety and our worry and our feelings of the hopelessness, helplessness, worthlessness, when does that become a real barrier to us living our successful life? The blues, okay, yeah, worried about, hey, I got a Zoom presentation at noon to present to some parents, and that's an anxiety. That's absolutely gives you little knots in the stomach. But you want to, as parents, we want to kind of identify when it's interrupting things. When little Johnny doesn't want to go to school because he's going to be picked on, or he's afraid that this is going to happen, or little Aaron is working on building a shelter because he's afraid the sun is going to explode, right? And it becomes this more and more intrusive. There's the word, intrusive in our life. And so we all have days, and we have negative interactions with people, road rage, or a boss that gripes at us, or just kind of that interpersonal conflict, and that leads to I just don't feel right. It's the persistent hopelessness, helplessness, worthlessness that comes with depression that we start to look for. Obviously, we want our kids to be self-confident. We want them to respect themselves and be understanding. And so where does that fall into that depression, or pushing themselves down and short selling themselves? And really, it's like there's a cachet nowadays with kids to kind of present themselves as damaged. There's a lot of I have anxiety, I have trauma, and I have grief, and you'll hear that, and you'll see that even other more significant mental illnesses. There was an article that came out in the last year, and it talked about TikTok Tourette's and the increase in Tourette syndrome, which is the tics. It starts with like a facial tic, like a kind of a blinky and movement, and then it moves on up to these outbursts, like vocalizations, with the real extreme cases being, just vulgar language. And because it's become more prevalent, they were seeing an increase in Tourette's-like symptoms amongst girls who have historically been less likely to have a tic disorder and less likely to have Tourette's with the foul language outbursts. And I saw a video, and I want to believe that she was sincere and she had concerns, but at the same time, it felt like it was a little bit more than it needed to be. I think she was kind of playing it up for the TikTok likes and views and things like that. You see chat stuff. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jump in if you've got anything. Wanted to make sure to address the chat. But there's a prevalence, there's an increase in mental health diagnoses because, I guess, partly because we're encouraging people to be healthy, and we're encouraging people to seek help, and seeing a therapist is more normal and more okay and more accepted, which is awesome. I love it. But we also don't want to see the adverse, where the diagnoses increase because it's cool to be that way. And personal, it hits home too, because my son, my oldest, at one point, he talked about, I've got real bad anxiety. And I had to have a conversation with him about what's that anxiety. And really, he said very normal type things. I'm scared that people are going to think badly of me. I'm afraid that people aren't going to like me. And I'm like, that's normal. That's like everybody, everyday stuff. Unless you're a complete narcissist and you don't care, we all have those thoughts and fears. The anxiety becomes, it's going to intrude in my life. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to hide in my house. I'm never going to see anybody. I'm not going to interact with anybody. And there was probably a little piece of that with him. He went to college, and unfortunately COVID killed college for him. And he's kind of found another little path for a while, but that all ties into that cachet and that increase in the acceptability of mental health diagnoses. Obviously, we're all worried about bullying. We're all worried about the kids managing stress. We always worry about people and kids hurting themselves, burning, pulling hair, picking scabs, it's kind of digging into the skin. It's that self-harm. I really wanted to address that because that is it feels like it's so misunderstood. If we see a young lady and she has cuts on her arm, maybe she's come here, we think it's suicide, right? We immediately kind of jump to that. She's cutting her wrist because she's suicidal. But there's a certain amount of, it feels good to feel something, because we look at kids that can have more significant mental health concerns and they feel numb and they don't feel anything. And so there's an adrenaline, there's a visceral experience of feeling the pain and seeing the cut and seeing the red and having control over something. There's a lot to that. I can't control this, and I can't control school, and I can't control my boyfriend, and I can't control my life, and I can't control my parents, but I can control me and I can feel good. Cutting, self-harm doesn't mean suicide necessarily. So if you ever notice your children do it, you can address that, and it should be something that we want to be concerned about. You shouldn't jump right to take them to the hospital, commit them to pine rest. They got to go there for 10 days because they're suicidal, because it might not be that way. But there are absolutely professionals who deal with that and can help you and your child manage that too. So. And then the big one was stress management. Kids are stressed these days. I feel like there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure to be social and to be normal, and then be social and normal in these times where we're supposed to keep distant and we're supposed to wear masks, and school kind of became disposable for a while, and it's lost a little bit of its feeling of necessity in some ways, I see, because of COVID. But thankfully we've protected ourselves, and we've been able to minimize the big effects of it. But that has little effects, and I see, and I anticipate, and so does the Surgeon General in his report, probably an increase in the mental health and the concerns as a result of just all the steps we had to take to curb a pandemic. What are going to be the trickle down effects of that? Stress management. But, how do we help our kids manage stress management, or manage their stress? A big piece of it is talking to them, helping them set reasonable expectations for themselves. I don't know, does anybody have a super high achieving kid that they've got to do everything? They've got to be the best. They've got to be the top. They got to have the best grades. They got to be in every event. It's okay. We as adults, we hope we can say, you know what? I don't need to do all those things. I'm going to push this one off, and I'm not going to join that organization. I'm not going to take on that extra work, or I'm not going to work that extra shift because I do. And we can model that for our kids as we manage our own stuff. We help them learn to manage theirs as well. The bottom line is, if you have any concerns, and I think if you notice anything, and you can normalize with your kids reaching out, Ms. Vader there, she's a school counselor. That is what she does, reaching out. You can reach out to her and she can help. She can also point you in the direction of a professional if there's like a longer term need. But reaching out for help is okay. And I'm glad that it has become so normal and so okay. I think that gives me great hope. There's more open for that. There's kind of like your concerns, the concerns that I was told you guys were most interested in hearing about. But I guess the biggest thing is really even beyond all that, I can't think of everything. And so I figure this would be the time for just kind of that open round table kind of discussion. What did I miss? What was I wrong? Was I wrong? I love being wrong. So here we go. Come on. Questions, thoughts, concerns, anybody? Oh, I lost it there. Ooh, this is going to be a short one. If we don't have any concerns, I guess I'm going to say that I hit everything.
I have a question coming in the chat right now.
Yeah.
It says,
Oh,
what's the
perfect.
best way to find a mental health professional that's a good fit for your kid? It says, I've reached out to providers before and never got a response, which is something that I've heard other parents say as well.
Yes.
That's me
Yes.
adding that second part.
Yes. And that is absolutely true. Mental health providers right now are pretty swamped. I hear stories about these counselors scheduling out months. We'll put you on the list and we'll get you a cancellation, but your appointment is going to be in April or May. And that's a testament to people getting help. It's kind of a testament to the significance of it. But it's kind of interesting that the parent put that in there. Can I recognize Barbara? May I call you Barbara? It's interesting that you said that, because my next thing, really going beyond the roundtable, is what are our community resources, right? If you have health insurance, go to your insurance card. Go to the back of your insurance card. There were numbers on there. They will be able to tell you every provider in your area that they are in network with. If you stay in network, that's even better, because they will cover more. They may give you a list of 20 and you may have to call, and some may not answer and some may not call back. And that I hate that too, because I hear those stories that, call and left a message and check in. Nobody got back to me. I can't get a schedule. I can't get on the calendar. I'm just because nobody talks. Call every one of them, every single one of them, and get on every single schedule. If you get on the calendar with agency A, and you go ahead and call agency B, and agency A put you on in April, and agency B says, I can take you in May, get on that calendar. Get on all of the calendars. It is okay, because they're gonna reach out to you beforehand and they'll say, hey, you got an appointment in 2 days, and you can cancel, but get on every list. It's the same thing for psychiatrists. Get on every single schedule that you can. And then once you get with them, I think the bigger concern is, what's the good fit? And there's a lot that goes into just that client clinician rapport building process and recognizing. And I fully admit that there are people that aren't going to like me, that I'm going to have a different style, that they're going to need a lady, they're going to need a younger person, they're going to need an older person, they're going to need a counselor who's a person of color. Just keep getting on the list and keep reaching out. But there are some very specific options that Wedgwood. Call Wedgwood. Gina can connect you with our counseling center in was it Kentwood, I believe. And you can get in with that. I work mostly like in Ottawa County and Muskegon County, but I know we have several really good clinicians here in this area that if you called and you said, if you called and talked to me anyway and said, I have a kid, can I get a counselor? I would say, oh yeah, you can go to Deanna, or you can go to Ashley, or you can go to Judy, and there are lots of options. Wedgwood is a good place. Of course, I gotta say it because I work for Wedgwood, right? But no, I've seen great passion and a great drive to help and support in Wedgwood, and I hold Wedgwood with a lot of great regard, and so I wouldn't hesitate ever to tell someone, call Wedgwood. Of course, if your insurance is Medicaid, you want to go to Network 180. That's going to be the local, used to be community mental health, which kind of had this negative sound, and so they're morphing from community mental health to the more modern Network 180. In Muskegon County, it's Health West, because they're more broad and overarching health organization, not just mental health, but they're doing medical support, dental support, like all kinds of that. So there's, if you've got Medicaid, go to Network 180. They can connect you with all kinds of services, clinicians, psychiatry, case management support, wraparound. That's a good one. Pine Rest, another great organization. More than 100 years, man. They've been around, and they've got the urgent care in the south of town on 68th Street. And if you needed, or your child needed an urgent care for psychiatric, you can go right there and you walk in, and it's a mental health emergency room. And that's really awesome. But they also have offices all over, and they're a great space. Your school-based supports. Ms. Vader, she said it. You could go right to her. That kid, your kid can walk from the lunchroom into her office, and maybe not talk directly to her at the time, but schedule and get in there and get some supports. There's also Psychology Today. They have therapist pages where you can just search, find a therapist in my area, and say if I live in Comstock Park, it will kind of put you with therapists who, that's their thing. That's how that's their network that they're creating. All everyone.
Mind if I break in right there, James?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, so for anybody that came maybe a little bit later or didn't get a chance to see kind of when we started, my name is Gina Boscarino, and I am another resource. I'm at the school Tuesday through Friday, and I am employed by Wedgwood, but I do all of my programming at Mill Creek. So my specific area is substance abuse prevention. But if you have questions about getting connected with mental health resources, or, looking into treatment, or any of these things that James was just talking about, you can give me a call, as well as, I know we already talked to Ms. Spader, and we had our social workers run a little bit earlier. I think they left, but we have a pretty great mental health team, I think, at Mill Creek. So if you're having a hard time, reach out to one of us, and we'll try to help you out there. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure to get that in, and I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, Gina would be, I'm sorry, I didn't think to put that in there, Gina. I forgot about you. Sorry. but these community-based supports, and even we talked about Ms. Vader, we talked about Gina, but you know what? That principal, I'm not sure who the principal is, but if I know principals at all, they all have that heart for kids. And if there's a real serious concern, you can absolutely go to them, and they can help put you in touch. So all those school-based supports are essential, and maybe the first point of contact, the first little bit of help and support, but they can be great resources in their community. And then, like I said, Psychology Today, go to just use Google Psychology Today and therapist, and you can put in your area. You can kind of just create your search. And there are clinicians who only work with older people. There are clinicians who only work with the LGBTQ population. There are clinicians who work only with kids. There's some that go broader, but you can just click, what do I want? And what kind of do I want? Faith-based? Do I want not faith-based? Do I want anything? And you can get a lot of resources that way. But it is very discouraging that it's just so much need nowadays, and it's harder and harder to find clinicians for these agencies. It's harder and harder for us to get supports, us as parents to get supports. But it boils down to us as parents recognizing that the health of my child is important, and I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to do this because my kid, my son, it is important. And so, and it's hard work. It's hard work, but who said parenting is so easy, right? So there's our local resources. That's about all I got for today, because the roundtable went pretty short. Anybody got any thoughts? Any other thoughts? Any concerns? Questions? What did I miss? What were you hoping to hear that I didn't put in there? All right, sweet. I got everything.
I think you did. The only thing I did want to bring up was, I know somebody had mentioned in the comments when we were filling out the application, somebody mentioned something about gender identity.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
And I know that's a whole other But I mean, is there something that you can suggest for a parent whose student is struggling with their gender identity?
Absolutely, absolutely. And while I'm not the expert, I have worked with some transgender kids, and that is a very troubling time. Let's just be honest. Being a kid is hard. Just being a kid, and then we throw in these the mental and the emotional, and then the media and the portrayal of these things, and we can see ways that this might make me happy, and there's absolutely gender dysphoria is absolutely there. The best way to do it is to find a support. I guarantee you there's a counselor out there who has a very specific skill set, very specific training specifically to that. It's finding them. That can be difficult. I like to have in my own mind good resources for that. And so I think, at least for most things, I don't have a good gender identity therapist in my kind of phone book of therapists. And so it doesn't mean they're not out there. And even one that doesn't have a specific training can help your child navigate through these monster changes that happens between, well, let's be honest, right? We got the uterine development, the in utero development, all the way through 26, where there's just constant changing and growth and all that. And it's difficult. If I were going to think about what I would do if it was my kid who said, I feel like I have a gender identity issue, I would say, well, I support you and I care about you no matter what. Because there's the biggest thing is that piece of acceptance of them. I did work with a young gentleman, I'm sorry, who's transgender. Her pronouns shifted. Mom wouldn't use the new pronouns. Mom wouldn't use the preferred pronouns. Mom wouldn't use the masculine name where he was formerly she. Mom still used the female name, and that created distress for that young man. And you don't want to say, oh, that's not right, you're just making it up or you're just faking it, because we don't know. But the more we can be accepting and caring and compassionate, the better off they will be. And parents being involved is essential, absolutely essential. The more you can be involved with your kids, the more you can spend time with them, the more you can, when they're young, read to them, play with them, go to events. We make a big difference. We make a bigger difference than we're sometimes we're told. We're told it takes a village, but really, that the most important role is that mom and dad. When we can be together and support our kids. So, parents, stay involved and stay active, because they're worth it. They're worth it. Did that answer the question? That was pretty general.
That was a great answer. I think that was a really awesome answer. Yeah. So do we have any other questions? I know.
Let's see. Oh yeah. Ms. Renzema, absolutely. Reach out for some help. If you need it, if that was specific to your question or not, or just anything, reach out for help. There are supports there. It may feel overwhelming, and it may feel like there aren't, because you might get a call back from this one place, or this one place tells you, no, we're not taking anybody new, call that other place. Another interesting one I thought about, called GVSU's School of Social Work. Just call the School of Social Work and see if they have, because they have intern counselors all over the place. And maybe those interns are going to need those kinds of experiences. Maybe they can put you with one of those field service people who can put you in. That's another good resource right there. Try that. Jeannie, you and I talked about vaping, which is a whole nother thing just in and of itself.
Yes, I think we're going to probably have to devote another full parent program to that, which is good, because I think that's a big topic here. So
it is the single biggest discipline issue I'm hearing about in schools nowadays.
1,000%.
And I talked to a principal at one of the schools here in Ottawa County, and he said, used to be, it was just a certain subset of kids who they'd catch smoking out behind the gym or smoking right off campus, and they get them. Now it's so prevalent. It's everybody. There's not any one particular, like, it used to be the stoners were doing this, and there's these kids, but it's every kid, and it's not every kid, but every kind of demographic, and it's not one anymore, and it is there. And those there you go. You back to the support, right? You go back to the support of parents, and you enable the kids to make healthy choices and good choices, and you model good healthy choices, and as much as you can, and just continue to be there and support. Because like, you think about a parent, like I'm gonna stop them because I don't want them to make that bad choice. It's like saying, I'm saying you are not allowed. Don't you even do it. Don't you even think about thinking about penguins. Oh, there's a penguin in my head, right? Popped in my head because you said penguin. I already kind of broke the rule. And it could be the same thing about vaping. We don't want to completely go, nah, it's okay, fine. But harping on it can be kind of the self-fulfilling piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think a vaping presentation is very important. And I think it's important to keep the kids going in that and learning about it and understanding that it can be harmful.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have 7th grade students, but if you do have 7th grade students, they will have me in their science class at some point this year. And one of the topics we'll talk about is vaping. I dedicate a lot of time to talking about that because it's a big topic for the kids. So yeah, some of them I've already talked to, so you could ask them if you've heard about it in school yet or talked about it.
Awesome. We're at 12:56. We ready to wrap it up?
Yeah. All right. No last minute questions.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Good to
James.
talk
for
to you
coming
guys.
today.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Appreciate
you.
everybody stopping by. And this will be available online. I'm not sure how soon, but at some point. So I'll send out those links to those of you who would ask to see that as well. So everybody have a
guys.
wonderful day and thank you.